Let me continue on the various sessions of the Indian Constitution, which I've already made a couple of videos. Last time we were talking about human rights, and almost every single article of human rights I have tried to elaborate, which would be very beneficial for anyone who is trying to get an idea of human rights. Everyone must know the Constitution. It's a very important thing because it has in it various kinds of inputs that every human being must know who is living within the territory. We are talking about the Constitution of India. Now let us go to part 4 of the Indian Constitution. Part 1, part 2, part 3 we finished. Let me go to part 4. Part 4 of the Indian Constitution goes from Article 36 to Article 51. Part 4 has two sections. We have got Part 4A, which talks about fundamental duties. Today, that is from Article 51A. Article 51A up to Article 51, I'll repeat again, from Article 36 to Article 51 of the Indian Constitution, Part 4 of the Indian Constitution, which talks about directive principles of state policy. It's very important for me to tell you what it is. Directive principles, not to get scared about it. Part 4 has got Part 4A, which only talks about a full elaborate article called 51A, which talks about duties of citizens. Today we will cover Article 36 to Article 51 of the Indian Constitution, Directive Principles of State Policy. What does this mean? No court can enforce this directive principles of state policy. It's a principle. It is directive. That means the Constitution is telling the state, you must follow this principle. You must not go against these principles whenever you make your policies. So there are some principles which are written very clearly. I don't know how many constitutions around the world have such principles. I have to study them in more detail. But our Indian Constitution has got direct principles, but no judiciary can enforce it. It is assumed that the state will follow these things. However, the judiciary can make comments if the state policies are not being properly adhered to. Because as I told you, Constitution is a text. It's the most fundamental text from which all laws are derived. It's a powerful book. It's more powerful than any organ of government, because how organs of government should work is deduced from the constitutional framework. Let us see what it says. I will only go to the most important things. Article 38 of the Constitution, Directive Principles of State Policy. State to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of the people. Article 38 of the Indian Constitution comes in Part 4 under the overall title of Directive Principles of State Policy. That means the state shall maintain law and order. State to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of the people. It has to maintain a social order. I don't know what the Constitution has written more on that. Please see this, what this social order means. One of the statements written here very well. Promote welfare by securing all and protecting as effectively as it may a social order in which justice, social, economic, and political shall of national life. That means what it basically says is all the institutions of government must maintain social order. Social order in turn means that non-discrimination. It must have a sense of justice in what is being done. More precisely, the state shall in particular strive to minimize the inequalities in income and endeavor to eliminate inequalities in status, facilities, and opportunities, not only amongst individuals but also amongst groups of peoples residing in different areas or engaged in different vocations. I don't know how to explain this more specifically. State to secure social order. Social order does not mean law and order. Social order means you should follow certain principles in the way you organize things. Uh, Social, economic, and political justice shall be maintained. In particular, strive to minimize the inequalities in income. It talks of inequalities in income. Fantastic. Now you understand this to some extent. The state must be careful. In this comes taxation. That means I'm trying to create a level playing ground, or I'm trying to understand I'm trying to maintain a kind of a setup which is more orderly. State is watchful. Basically, for any flagrant or any highly pronounced inequalities among communities. I don't know if that's right. How this principle can be interpreted is it must maintain social order. There must be certain kinds of hierarchies, obviously, and which has to be respected. That's why the duties come under this part 4 of the Constitution. Here it talks about duties of the state to maintain some amount of social order, whatever it means. Social order means there should not be very highly deviant income patterns. If there is, then the state must do something to see that income patterns are rationalized. Or it also says that the state must give income to people so that they can maintain a normal standard of living. There should not be a totally disadvantaged section. So that can be interpreted that way. We'll interpret it again. State to strive. Article 39 of the Constitution, very important. Certain principles of policy to be followed by the state. This is a very elaborate article, Article 39. Very quickly, I'll go through that. Men and women equally, it shall have the right in an adequate means of livelihood. Though that there is equal pay for equal work for both men and women, no discrimination. Men and women to be treated equally. Children are given opportunities and facilities to develop in a healthy manner and in conditions of freedom and dignity, are protected against exploitation and against moral and material abandonment. It talks about child rights. Now, natural resources of the community are so distributed as not best to subserve common good. Don't take it to, don't be very, just certain principles around which I talked about, something about how children are taken care of, no discrimination between men and women, equal pay for equal work, certain legislation or certain observations from the Constitution. Article 39A of the Constitution, which says equal justice and free legal aid. Very important principle. It does state that you must provide someone with free legal aid. That's why there are many free legal aid clinics run by the state across the country. Article 40, organization of village panchayats. I don't understand this beyond a point. Village panchayats. At the microscopic level of government, you must have village panchayat with its members and duties. It is what we call the smallest unit of government, as seen at a village level. This is a very important thing. Another thing is Article 41 under Directive Principles of State Policy, right to work, to education and public assistance in certain cases. Right to work, right to education, and public assistance in certain cases. Public assistance means if there is someone who is disadvantaged, the state must provide assistance to them. Is a Article 42, provision for just and humane conditions of work and maternity relief. This is very important for me. Article 42 of the Indian Constitution, which says provision of just and humane conditions. The workplace should not be inhuman. It must be just and humane. Article 43 of the Indian Constitution, living wage, etc., for workers. That shall endeavor to secure that by suitable legislation or economic negotiation, economic organization of work, ensuring a decent, equal justice and free. It again repeats legal aid, an organization, whatever it means, living wage. Let me see exactly what it says. Right to work, to education, public. For workers, standard of life and full enjoyment of leisure and social and cultural opportunities, and in particular, the state shall endeavor to provide cottage industries on an individual level or cooperative basis in rural areas. Now, this is to elaborate for me, but please understand the most important thing: right to work, education, and public assistance in certain cases. Provision of just and humane conditions at workplace and maternity relief. Living wage, etc., for workers and appropriate standard of life and full enjoyment of leisure and social and cultural opportunities, and in particular, the state shall endeavor to promote. It says cottages, but still, please understand what it means. It talks about wage for workers. It talks about leisure, and it talks about culture. That is Article 43 of the Indian Constitution. Now, it also talks about 43A, participation of workers in management of industries. Article 46, Uniform Civil Code for citizens. I'm sorry. Article 44, 44, not 46, 44. Very good. Article 45, provision of early childhood care and education in children below age of 6. It talks about child rights. Article 46, promotion of educational and economic interests of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and weaker sections. Article 47, duty of the state to raise the level of nutrition, standard of living, and to improve public health. Very important. Look at this, very nicely written. Article 47 of the Indian Constitution, directive principles of state policy. Directive principles of state policy. It talks about Article 47 institution, duty of the state to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living and to improve public health. Article 48, organization of agriculture and animal husbandry. Endeavor to organize agriculture and animal husbandry on modern and scientific lines. It talks about scientific lines, agriculture on scientific lines. I will take steps for preserving and improving the breeds and prohibition of slaughter of cows and calves and other. Oh, fantastic, whatever it means. I don't understand husbandry beyond a point, but it talks about the state must interfere in the agriculture within the agriculture and endeavor to make scientific improvements in that. Fantastic. Article 48A, what I told now is 48, Organization of Agriculture and Animal Husbandry. 48A, protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forests and wildlife. The state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forests and wildlife of the country. Safeguard the wildlife of the country. If any truck driver going through a forest in India, if he were to injure any animal, uh, he can be restrained and arrested by the police. It talks about animal rights. Safeguard the forests and wildlife. It's Article 48A, protection and improvement of environment, safeguarding of forests and wildlife. The Constitution talks about so many things. Article 49, protection of monuments and places and objects of national importance. See, it shall be the obligation of the state to protect every monument or place or object of artistic and historic interest declared by or under law made by Parliament. National importance from spoliation. That means it must be spoiled. Disfigurement, destruction, removal, disposal, or export, as the case may be. That means protection of monuments and places of objects of national importance. Directive principles of state policy. Article 50, separation of judiciary from executive. The state shall take steps to separate the judiciary from the executive in the public services of the state. It means judiciary has got independence. Now, promotion of international peace and security. Article 51, the last article under Part 4 of the Indian Constitution. The state shall endeavor to promote international peace and security, maintain just and honorable relations between nations, foster respect for international law and treaty obligations and dealings of organized with one another, foster respect in international law and dealings organized by body, encourage settlement of internal dispute by arbitration. Beautiful. Encourage settlement of internal dispute by arbitration. Of course, I'll explain this even further, but I've told you directive principles of state policy, Article 36 to Article 51, Part 4 of the Indian Constitution. I will sum up to some extent. You have seen whatever things it talks. It talks about social order. Of course, the judiciary cannot enforce this on the state, but the state is expected to follow these things. Equal pay for equal work, workers' participation in management, encouragement of agriculture and scientific means, encouragement of animal husbandry, protection of wildlife, participation in a healthy way. The country must participate in maintaining international peace and order. Um, such kind of a child rights, enjoyment of leisure, enjoyment of culture, opportunities of education, non-discrimination at workplace, creating human work environment. I have summed it to some extent what these directive principles of state policy basically mean. Many other laws of the country, like environmental law and many other fine laws, are drawn from the directive principles of state policy. The statement ensure these things are met with in good faith. And so it's explicitly written inside in the Indian Constitution. A fantastic piece of legislation, if you may so call it. With that, we will finish off this session. Directive Principles of State Policy. This is P.O. Subhash from Bangalore, India.